episode number 93. My name is Krista, and I'm your host. It's November 13th, 2024, and today we are revisiting my recent conversation with Haley Montgomery. She joined us last week to talk about Family Alliance in Music, an organization she co-founded to support parents in the music industry. On today's episode, however, Haley is sharing a cautionary tale that hits close to home for many of us, especially if your child is or will be in daycare. This critical issue doesn't always get the attention it deserves. Carbon monoxide safety in daycares. Haley will be sharing her experience that sent shockwaves through the Nashville community when a carbon monoxide leak at a local daycare put the lives of children and staff at serious risk. The investigation revealed a disturbing reality. Many daycares, including this particular one, don't have carbon monoxide detectors. So, in today's conversation, we're going to talk about the lessons Haley learned from this incident, how parents can take action, and the steps you can take to ensure the daycare you entrust with your children's care is prioritizing their safety. This is an episode every parent needs to hear. But before we get into that, I just want to say thanks for tuning in, Mama. I started this podcast because babies don't come with instructions. As of this recording, I am chasing around a 6-year-old that no amount of Googling, mom groups, or books were able to prepare me for. There's a lot of stuff people don't talk about when it comes to pre-pregnancy, during pregnancy, postpartum, parenting, and as someone who was terrified of all of the above, I'm here to help you pull back the curtain on all of it. And every now and then, it may get a little messy. We may share a little TMI, but that's why you're here, right? My goal is you'll leave every episode feeling refreshed, inspired, and hopeful knowing you're not on this mom journey alone. Now, there's a lot of subject matter to cover when it comes to mom life, and we are covering it all. If you're not following this podcast yet, make sure you hit that follow or subscribe button wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. Now, let's reconnect with Haley Montgomery. So, Haley, we're going to take a pivot. We have been chatting about FAM. Now we are going to talk about something earlier this year that you experienced in regards to something with your daughter's daycare that was not only disturbing but life-threatening. And you've been open about this personal experience with carbon monoxide detector issues in a local daycare. But this is not just a Nashville issue. This is a statewide Tennessee issue, and it's unlikely our state is the only state that faces these mandates. So can you tell us briefly? I had no idea about anything like this until I saw your story. So can you tell us briefly more about the situation, how it impacted your family, and just the steps you took and are taking?
It's been the most educational moment I could have had on CO monitoring in public areas. It's an education I never wanted. So it's also an education I've shared just because truly I would have never known until this happened to us. But so first off, our daughter goes to daycare full time, which was a decision I was super excited about. I went to daycare. My mom worked full time. I love daycare. We were excited to find one that really appealed to my millennial heart, right? With talking about learning through water and neutral colors and lesson plans and all the things. But in November, on November 3rd, I smelled an odd odor that scared me enough that I checked my daughter in and immediately checked her out and complained about it. Apparently this was from a gas heater, which I'd never experienced, and was told it was just a turning on first day burn off smell. It ends up that CO, though it's the silent killer, is pretty exclusively linked with the smell of burning gasoline. And that is what the smell was. It very much, like, I smelled it and my heart was like, oh my God, something's about to explode. And the smell did dissipate after that. We waited a while to take her back, but it would like just come back in random spurts, especially in certain parts of the building. So there were a couple other times that I just like kept her out, and something in my mommy brain, even though I kept like complaining about this and kept being reassured, it just felt weird. So I started looking at other daycares in the meantime. On January 5th, my husband drove up and all the kids and teachers were standing out in the cold with fire trucks. He never took Gray inside. and talked to a teacher and found out that a parent who was concerned had brought in a CO monitor and it went off for dangerous levels. Since Gray never went in, we didn't know if this applied to us at first, and the school actually sent out messages saying there's no reason to worry. Ends up, another parent sent a message to them and said, "Hi, I'm at the ER. There's 50 plus people here and kids are throwing up. You need to stop lying." And so they...
I want to pause right there because you were saying, because we're coming upon close, this was 11 months ago. You were saying November, this was November of 2023. And we're recording, as of this recording, it's early October 2024. So you're saying November, and you in January, so November, December, January is when now, so you'd had her there every day.
Yeah.
From November, from you sensing, smelling that, and then now January, they've got everybody out, and this monitor has showed dangerous levels.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
And they
I just
had
wanted
never
to paint
thought
that
to
picture.
check that. But so, yeah, it had been 3+ months, and we didn't know if we should take Gray to get tested because, again, I don't understand CO. I'm still not I'm not totally linking in my head to the smell. I'm just like, I told you that place wasn't good. Like, I knew we should have gotten in somewhere else, right? And we're sort of on the bend about taking her in to get tested because it's like pretty extensive blood testing, and she's only 8 months old at this point. And it's just terrifying. And so this parent reached back out to Otter Learning and said, "You need to be honest." And so Otter Learning did reach out and say, "Hey, you should go get tested, blah, blah, blah." So we went to the doctor. They couldn't do the official testing. Apparently the ER and only certain places can do this. And so she checked her over because she was a really weird color. And like looking back now, and like I can say this without crying, so unfortunately had to just say it so many times. She was a weird color for a while. Like it definitely was this like, I'm pale. So I kind of just thought baby girl in the winter kind of looks like mama. She's sort of pale, but there was a different hue to it. I don't know. And she was very lethargic. Like, my God, sleeping for long stints, because those are the number one signs of poisoning is coloration, sleepiness, and fussiness. So pretty much like everything a baby does is a sign. And anyway, so we went to the doctor. The doctor said it was okay, but just had a bad feeling and saw how upset we were. Called the poison control center after we left, and then immediately called us and said they said levels were alarmingly high. You need to go to the ER and get the official test. And we did. She had over double what any person should have in their body for CO, which is just, it makes me sad sometimes. It makes me mad sometimes. It makes me mad right now. Like, how dare they? This was 8-month-old and was one of nearly 100 kids. And so she had to go to oxygen for 6 hours. She was so little that they didn't have masks that fit her face. They had to look all over the hospital for them. It was awful. It was horrible. And they weren't admitting to anything. The school didn't even close down for a full day. They tried to completely negotiate off all of their liability. They lied the following Monday and told parents they had enough teachers and they didn't. And some of the classrooms had over 20 kids in them. Like, it was such a horrible situation. And honestly, we got some news coverage, and the only reason was because when no one was reacting, I called the news stations. I called every station I could get a hold of. I even started reaching out to national outlets and was like, "Did you know 100 kids got CO poisoning?" Like, how is this not a bigger deal? I'm so confused. And also, yeah, just that's the main meat of the story. I could keep going on and on because it just infuriates me.
Now, let's take a quick break.
Introducing the new Mom Talk podcast, your ultimate guide to navigating the journey of motherhood with confidence and clarity. Hosted by me, Mariela de Santiago, this podcast provides evidence-based answers to all those burning questions for expecting, new, and first-time moms. From pregnancy to postpartum, breastfeeding to sleep training, we've got you covered with insightful discussions and practical advice. Tune in to the new Mom Talk podcast and embark on your motherhood journey with knowledge and empowerment.
Now back to the show. Unbelievable, Haley. I'm so sorry you've experienced this and that these other families have experienced this. It just never even occurred to me that this could be an issue, what advice or lessons would you share with other parents to ensure that their children's daycares and schools are properly equipped with safety measures like carbon monoxide?
So nationally, there is no policy that requires CO monitors in any public gathering place. So I want to be super clear about what that means. We worked and luckily, a politician saw my story on the news and said this needs to change, and we changed it for daycares in Tennessee. There's not a national policy. Like 90% of states do not have a national policy. They're not monitoring for CO because it is relatively rare for gas to be the heating source, but there can be other sources of CO. So it is so cheap. Monitors are $10. You need to make sure they're at the right level so they can reach the CO, because CO is on the floor, which means your child is more susceptible. And you need to check with your school to see if they have it. Tell your state if this is an issue, because it's just such a small thing. It's being overlooked on an extreme level. It's just so basic that no one is thinking of it. But it's not just daycares. This is schools. This is where your kid goes for Girl Scout meetings. This is anywhere, because poisoning from CO, death can happen within 30 minutes. So anywhere your child is long-term, I would advise, and they even have travel monitors, to look into CO monitors. They're so cheap. It's so easy to change. You could even, if I was at a school and they didn't have them and it wasn't the policy, you could donate everything they need for $100. Like, how easy is that? And you replace the batteries just like you would a fire detection system. So it's not a huge deal. The other advice I would give is there is a daycare shortage in the US, and it's horrible, and there needs to be someone to step in and help it. However, research who owns your daycare, because there are now private entities, VCs, different investment groups that are going through and buying daycares, very similar to the format of McDonald's. They are looking at the property value, so Nashville is very hot, and trying to buy up both the business, and if they own the land, buy the land that they own as well. And that's where they're making their money. They do not care about the kids. I want to be super clear. The people who are watching my child at Elm Hill cared about my kid. They were great. They complained about the system. Otter Learning, who owns all of it, made the decision that it was not in their financial best interest to do anything. And there are records that they chose to not fully fix the systems. So I trust daycares. My child is back in a daycare. I'm all for working moms. Follow the money and just make sure that if you are not in a small owned daycare, that you understand exactly how their dollar is measured, and that the people taking care of your kids have clear communication systems to get the support they need in case something happens.
Haley, so enlightening. Thank you for sharing this with us. I'm so sorry, and wishing you all the best with this situation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to continue following along, looking ahead. What are your hopes for the future of Back to Family Alliance and Music? What are your hopes for the future of this amazing nonprofit, and what long-term goals do you have for expanding the reach and impact of your work in supporting parents and families within the music industry? And then, side note, kind of an addendum to that question, same question with regards to what you've experienced with the daycare scenario. Because you are a change agent, and it's really inspiring, and you've taken some lemons and you are turning them into lemonade so that other people coming up behind hopefully won't have to experience some of these things, or at least have some resources to sort quickly a more ideal situation.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I have noticed I do that. I wouldn't say it's always a positive trait, because it can be somewhat annoying, especially for significant others and other people in your life, to constantly talk to you about all the stones you want to flip over and fix constantly. But yeah, with FAM, I'm so excited for when we get to the place, hopefully, where we can actually make monetary change and be able to give grants to those seeking IVF or needing help shipping their milk because they're on the road and they need to get milk to their baby, or someone who just had a parent that emergency needs to be put into elder care and doesn't have any type of money to help cover that because it's extremely expensive. I will say what we've run into, and I say this with hope, but also maybe your followers, this speaks to them. We found that getting grants and getting into the pockets for this, it's never seen as like the number one issue, unfortunately, just because it's not like no one is necessarily dying. No one is however you may see it. I think that it's a very big issue, and it's crazy how just a couple grand can change a life in these situations. And so we're actively in fundraising, and I'll send you the link over for the donation portal, but we're actively trying to find the right people who find this as a passion project, who can be partners on making sure the money goes to the right place, because there really isn't a lot of grant systems for people in this scenario. And we are providing our first educational panel on November 11th at WME, which will be open, and we'll have registration through our website. And we want to do things like that. But we also think there's really, really a lot of power in being able to step in and be a voice for our community and be able to take care of maybe a couple grand that will give a little bit of peace of mind to our industry. My hope for just the daycare system and CO in general, CO, I hope it becomes more of a no-nonsense, easy thing that can be paired with the monitoring of fire detection systems. It's so easy to couple that and make it just a combined requirement from your state. It's the same kind of check systems that they need to maintain it. So I really hope that that becomes an easy conversation. And like, honestly, the one bill every politician in the room can agree on. I think that that easily could become it. I don't have enough energy to go to every state and chase that, but I hope other people do, so no one ever experiences what I do or what I have. But I also hope, as far as the daycare system, that our country really understands the burden of daycare on moms and fathers, and just the choices they're having to make about going back to work or providing safe care for their kids. And that hopefully, if we're not giving breaks in cost, that we're doing something to create more competition in the space and encouraging smaller businesses to get into the space versus these larger VCs that really only are rewarded by bigger gains and cheaper prices as far as fixing up the buildings and taking care of things. On a national issue and during this time of election, we need somebody who really is taking a look at like, what are we doing to encourage someone who was a healthcare provider for years to think of a daycare as their second career choice versus only leaving their reward on the table for a big company that sees this as a money grab.
Well, that's a wrap for today's conversation with Haley. You can find links to news articles and her social platforms where she's shared more of her story in today's show notes at secretmomhacks.com/episode 93. I'm curious what your favorite part of our interview was. I hope you're walking away inspired with tips either for yourself or that new mom you know. If that's the case, please follow me on your favorite podcast platform if you haven't already. Give me a 5-star rating and leave a review sharing your favorite takeaway so far. You can do all of that by going to ratethispodcast.com/secretmomhacks. Don't forget to stop by secretmomhacks.com where you can find resources and enter your email address so every new show is delivered straight to your inbox. Stay tuned for next week's episode, and until then, you've got this, mama. Now, let's take a quick break.
Introducing the new Mom Talk podcast, your ultimate guide to navigating the journey of motherhood with confidence and clarity. Hosted by me, Mariela DeSantiago, this podcast provides evidence-based answers to all those burning questions for expecting, new, and first-time moms. From pregnancy to postpartum, breastfeeding to sleep training, we've got you covered with insightful discussions and practical advice. Tune in to the new Mom Talk podcast and embark on your motherhood journey with knowledge and empowerment.
Now back to the show.